Okay, so last time in part 1 we actually used TileMapLayers with a simple background, a simple sprite 2D to create this random sort of tile background. I'm going to move on to other type of tiles in a bit, but I want to show another feature of TileMapLayers. You can actually use TileMapLayers to tile another scene, and I'll show what I mean. Let me just close this off. I'm going to add a new scene here, and in this scene I'm just going to quickly create a particle layer that makes a twinkling sort of effect of one star, and I'll just run through it quickly and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so I've created the twinkle scene. This is supposed to be my twinkle star. If I go down on it, you'll probably see what I'm talking about. And I can probably move, since I made a folder for scenes, I can probably move the other scene into here. So it's more organized now. Okay, and I'm going back to my original scene, this simple tile map scene with the starry background. And I'm just going to add another tile map layer here, and let's just call it twinkle star or something, so we know what it is, or twinkle layer. And this being a tile map layer, now we can go into Tileset and add a Tileset, and we're going to leave all these as is for now. And at the bottom here, let's just reselect it. At the bottom here where there's Tileset, I'm just going to open the scenes and click add inside the tile sources here, and I'm going to add a scenes collection, and I'm just going to drag twinkle scene across here. If you go into tile map, and we can click this here just like we did, and let's use the rectangle tool and draw this across here. And if you look inside here, you'll see we have little twinkling stars. Of course, the size that we pasted at is 16 by 16 pixels. This is way too many twinkling stars for me. If we run this, it might be a little too much. Let's just see what it looks like. So I'm just going to remove this. And let's save that. Okay, so let me just zoom in here a bit. We want to stay inside this square here, and let's use the random tiles. Don't forget to select this again. And if we don't use scattering, it's still going to be a little thick, so let's just see what it looks like. It's not working like I would like it to, so let's undo that, and let's add maybe 0.5 scattering. Let's see how that works. Still a little too much for me. Let's undo that. Let's try 50. It's getting much better now. I can actually work with this. It seems a little excessive still, but that looks very nice. We have random tiles spread all over, giving you a little bit of twinkle. Let's close this off, and let me try that again. Let's put it at 100, and let's just delete this here, what I just put here. 100 seems to be a little better. I'll save this, and I think I like this. So this is beautiful. I like the fact that you can actually use a tile map layer and include a collection of other scenes as your tile map. I chose to use this twinkle layer because it's a space background and I just wanted stars twinkle in the background. But this can be used to layer on other scenes that you've already made. For example, if you have enemy scenes, or if you created your own tree scenes, if you have prototype scenes using shapes alone, you can use those as well. And the good thing about adding another scene, whatever you use on the scene, if the scene has its own properties, it comes across into your tile map layer, like collision properties and those sort of things. Let's move on to a little more in-depth in tile map. I'm going to close this off. I'm just going to import another of Kenny's assets called Tiny Town into the artwork. I can close this off now. And if we open artwork, we can close the space shooter, and you'll see we have another folder that says Tiny Town here with several tile maps. Let's open them and see what it look like on the right hand side here. So I'm going to be using one of these tile maps here. They're the same thing, just one has spaces in between the tiles, and the other one doesn't. Let's create a new scene. Let's call it Town. Let's just save. So let's click Town and add TileMapLayer. This is where the power of the layers come in. And we may want a ground layer or grass layer, those sort of things. Let's name this ground. So we'll call it ground layer. We're going to add the tile set. And these tile sets are 16 by 16. And I believe these tile sets that we downloaded are also 16 by 16. But of course, let's drag it over. If you're going to drag this tile map here, you can automatically create it. And you'll notice that some parts got cut off here because the tile didn't cater for the spaces in between. If you notice here, if we go in a little closer, you'll notice that there's a space here, and I believe in the documentation for the tile sheet, it was stated that there was a 3 pixel space in between. So we have to manually add that in if you're going to use this tile map. So the separate, where you see the separation here, you put 3 for X and 3 for Y. And if you notice now, the squares line up perfectly around the tiles, except down to the end here, where there's extra tiles. You can tell the texture region is not as large. Let's click this and remove tiles from outside texture, and you notice there's something missing here still. And something went wrong somewhere. I'm unsure exactly where. Maybe the size of the tiles was not counted properly. The whole texture was not cut properly. So we may have to do this manually. Or let's remove this tile map and let's use the other tile map, the one that has no spaces in between, and let's click yes to automatically cut it. And if you notice here, everything is cut perfectly. We don't need any separators. We did it automatically, so no separators were applied. So I'm going to use this one because it's less error prone, and we're not going to have any problems using this one. Let's save this. Okay, let me just bring this up a bit so we can see the tile set here. I'm calling this ground layer. If you notice, there are some other assets here, like houses and there are fences, there are trees, and there's some tools here as well. Okay, and this is where the power of TileMapLayers shines through. We have our tile set here. We have called this layer the ground layer, so I'm just going to use ground tiles, which are these here, to paint on this layer, and I want to omit the other tiles that I'm not going to use. So let's go into the eraser tool here, and we can also hold Control and create a square around the tiles we don't want, and it's going to delete them from the selection. They're not deleted from the tile set, but they're just deleted from what we're going to use, the selection that we're going to use in this tile map. So now what we have here, that's all we can use when we go across our tile map. So let's go across our tile map. Now across our tile map, let's just widen this a bit. Across our tile map, if we try to select any other tiles that weren't selected during the tile set selection process, it's not going to select anything except what we have here, which is the highlighted area. But of course, remember, whatever we're going to use to paint with, we want to select them. Let's just select all for now, because I want to use random. Use the rect tool and use random. And let's just minimize this a bit. And let's draw a box around the window area. And let's save this. If you notice, let's run it. You'll notice that we have a nice ground area with randomly pasted tiles, and it looks a bit organic. Let's close this. Now I want to create a new layer. You can create it from scratch, or I'm going to click the ground layer and press Ctrl D, which will give me a ground layer 2, and I'm going to rename this to, let's call it brush or shrubs or something like that. But you'll notice here in the tile set, we still have ground selected, so we can deselect that. You'll notice something weird is going to happen when we deselect this. So we already have the eraser tool selected. Let's just deselect these tiles here. And if you notice up here, tiles are being deleted from the ground layer. If I delete all, let's go across the tile set. And if I delete all the tiles are going to disappear. And let's say I just want these small trees here. Don't forget to take off the eraser tool and select those. You'll notice something, our ground layer has disappeared. And that's because this brush layer is directly linked to the ground layer, because we just duplicated the ground layer to create the brush layer. What we need to do, let's undo what we just did here. So Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. We have our ground layer and we have our brush layer. Let's click the brush layer, go into the TileMapLayer on the inspector, where it says Tileset here. Right click on Tileset and click Make Unique. Now when we do that, let's just widen this out a bit again. Whatever we do to our second layer, which is the brush layer in this case, it's not going to affect the ground layer, because we made our second layer a unique layer from the ground layer. It's not linked to the ground layer anymore. In the tile set, let's just remove the ground and let's just add these trees here. Don't forget to remove the eraser. Great. And we can go across our tile map now, and we'll see that we can only select those small trees and shrubs and brush across there from the brush layer. If you go back into ground layer, we'll notice that the ground layer is preserved in the tile map. So let's just draw some brush here. I'm going to keep the random on. Let me just drop this a bit. And let's put the scattering to, let's say, 20. Don't forget to select the tile maps that you're going to use, like I just did. And just draw a square around it, and we're going to get brush being placed. Let's save this. Scattered across the scene. Let's close this. Let's just put a nice little area here. Go back to tile map, and let's remove the scattering, 0. I'm just going to draw a little area here, and I'm going to fill it. Let me select it. I'm just going to drag this in here. Let's save this, and let's see how it looks. So we have a nice little area here. And let's put a layer for tall trees, so we can duplicate this one as well. You can right click and duplicate. It's going to call it brush 2. Let's rename it to tall trees maybe. Don't forget to make it unique. So we go across the tile set, right click and make unique. So it's totally separate now. And let's deselect these small trees here. Make sure your tall trees layer is selected, and let's only select the big trees. Let's go into tile map. Now if you select these trees here, remember in Tileset, the tile size is 16 by 16. So if we select these here, sorry, let's go back to tile map now. And if we select these here, it's going to select any one out of the 4 if we do random. May not be what we like. Let's just create an area. Let's just create a random tile on the side here. And you'll notice sometimes you get the top of the tree, sometimes you get the bottom, sometimes you get a mat, sometimes you don't. Which, in your game, you may want something like that, but we don't want that here. So let's fix this. Okay, so we can just select this, use the select tool, and select the trees that we don't want, and press delete. And it's going to remove it from the scene. Let's fix this. Now if we leave our tile size, we can change the tile sizes on the right hand side in TileMapLayer. But let's go back across to the tile set. And in the tile set, we want one of these trees to be a complete unit, which means we want the width to be 16 pixels, but the height to be 32 pixels. So let's go down into the texture region, and let's click 32 and enter. And we'll notice now it's selecting all these other trees that we don't want here, and all these other areas. Let's just delete them. Great, so if we use our selection tool now, you realize that you can only select a tall tree, a full tall tree by itself. Let's go across our tile map layer, and we'll see that our tall tree tiles are still selectable here. So if we select both of them, and let's draw, if we zoom in now, you'll see that the full trees are being pasted, and it looks nice because some of the trees are being pasted in front, halfway in front of the other. So it looks like a proper 2.5D view where we are looking diagonally down onto the trees. If you don't like that effect, we can change the tile size on the TileMap layer and change that to 32 as well. And you'll see this is what happens. The trees are lined up on separate tiles without any overlapping. You can choose what effect you want. I prefer the overlapping, so let's just change this back to 16, and we have these trees that are overlapping on each other. Let's just delete that now, and I just want to draw a few small areas for trees. Let's go back to the rect tool. We still have random here. Don't forget to select the trees that you want to paste, and I'm just going to draw a little area, and I'm going to fill. Let me just draw another little area here. Let's fill again. Let's select those. I'm just going to select these areas here and put one in here, and select this area here and put it in here. There's a reason we're doing this, because we're going to apply a physics layer soon. Okay, so this is what we worked so hard towards. We wanted to get, let's look at the scene and see how it looks. We pasted different tile map layers, each one above the other, and using this technique we can actually create complex terrains and environment for your game. Of course, now we need to, if we have a character moving through here, we need it to not be able to pass through certain areas, for example our forest trees. So let's create a player next, and we'll create a script for its movement, and we'll add a physics layer and show how you can add collision bodies to these trees. Okay, so let's organize our scene a little bit. Let's click town, let's add a new node 2D. Let's name this environment. Let's move it to the top here, and let's move all our tile map layers. Press shift to select in sequence and drag them into environment. We can minimize the environment for now. Let's click the root node, and let's add what we call a character body. This is for the player, and character body 2D. And you'll notice a warning here. It says this node has no shape, so it can't collide or interact with other objects. So what we have to do here is we have the character body selected, and we have to add a collision shape to that now. So let's right click on it, or just click add and look for collision shape. We add a collision shape here now. Let's just zoom in a bit. And the collision shape is saying that it also has a warning that says you must provide a shape. Let's go to the right hand side here where it says shape in the inspector, and let's click empty. We'll give it a rectangle shape because we're just going to use this simple icon. It's the easiest thing to use. You can probably go through here and create your own player if you like, but I'm just going to use the icon that comes with every project, the icon SVG, this. So let's undo that. On the character body again, let's add a sprite 2D, and that's where we're going to place our icon. Let's drag it across into the texture. Of course, it's a little too large. Let's transform and scale it down to maybe 20%. Let's try 30%. That looks a little better so we can see it. Let's zoom into this now and reselect the collision shape. And you'll notice there's a collision area here, but we need to resize it to the size of our sprite 2D. Of course, if you want to see it better, you can put the sprite 2D above that. And now you can see it covering the sprite 2D. You can rename this character body node to player if you like, and let's save this. As we created a player that has something called a character body 2D, and we give it a collision shape and sprite 2D, which is your character. In our case, it's the Godot face. And we're going to use this collision body is going to be able to collide with other things in the game. Right now in the game, we don't have any collision bodies on any of these layers as yet. We are going to fix that soon. Okay, before we move on, I just want to add a script to player. We can minimize player in the scene hierarchy. If you notice, I've created a script folder here as well, so add script to player. Apparently in Godot 4.6, we didn't have this before. There's a new character body 2D basic movement template you can use. Let's try it out and see how it works. And don't forget to put the script in your scripts folder and create. Okay, so it seems that this adds speed and a jump velocity and those sort of things. We don't need a jump velocity for this. And let's just see how it works. Okay, so this script is assuming that it's a side scroller, but this is supposed to be a top-down view. So we can always remove information for gravity and those sort of things. But for now, let's just block all these and let's comment them out. This is a script for how to move project that we did a very long time ago. And I'm just going to copy the speed and the function move input map. I can raise it a bit so if you need to see it, you can pause and see what we can use. But I'm just going to use this function here and the speed here and the physics process, and that's it. And we're just going to copy that across and bring it. So let me just go ahead and do that. That's our speed. Okay, we just need to fix something else here because we haven't defined right, left, up and down in our project settings input map. If you're going to use that, you have to define them here. I'm just going to use default UI left. So let's put UI left. Let's just type right here, and we'll get UI right. Let's type up, so we can get UI up, and let's retype down, so you can get UI down. And that's it. This is ready to go. We already have a speed. We're going to use the move by input map, which we created here, using the input get vector. Add the velocity, which is direction by the speed. The direction is where we're pressing, if we're pressing left, right, up or down. And we're using the move and slide. In our case, we don't have to use the $ character body because we already extending the character body in our, let's minimize this, in our player, which is already a character body 2D. So let's just remove the $ character body because it's just going to attach it to this node anyway, which is already a character body 2D, sorry. And let's save this. Let's just play it and make sure that our player can move. And yes, he moves. And it's not colliding with anything, even though he has a collider. That's because we need to add colliders to some of these things here. Okay, so let's go back into our 2D view. Let's go back into our environment. And I'm just going to add collisions to the tall trees alone. So this is where TileMapLayers comes in handy. This tall tree, as you remember, we made it a unique tile set. Let's click the tall trees again. And let's go back to Tileset. And inside here, let's go into Paint. And we need to select a property editor. We want to use a physics layer. That's what we're going to use for collisions. But it says no physics layers. So we have to go into the inspector on the side here and click physics layers, add element. And that is set now. We're going to leave it as collision layer 1 because our player is already in collision 1. If you don't want it to collide with the player, we can move the collision layer. So let's go back into the select property editor now, and you'll see we have a physics layer here. Select the physics layer 0, and let's just maximize this, and let's work on this. Now you notice the trees. We need to select what we're going to paint on our collision body on. So I'm going to select the yellow tree for now, and let's just drag the edges of our collision layer. You can drag this down here, and you can draw it around, or you can just make the whole tile square if you like. You can just lower the size of this a bit so you can see what we're doing. If you want, you can click the edge of the collision body, and you can create a new node like that. So if you want more specific collisions, you can do that. And there we go. That sort of looks good. Looks good enough for me. And we just have to click back inside the tile now, and you'll see it's applied to that tile. Let's save this. Let's select the other one. It's supposed to transfer that same shape across. But if it doesn't, you'll have to literally paint it on your own again. So we just applied collision bodies to our tall trees alone, nothing else. We haven't done it to any other layer. If you like, you can create collision bodies for other layers. Let's save this, and now let's run this, and let's start moving our player around. And you notice he's passing the smaller trees, which we did not put any collision layers on. But as soon as we come close to because I'm going up here and I'm going left and right and whatever, as soon as we come close to the tall trees, there are no movement beyond the tall trees because we have collision layers on the tall trees. So that's how you add collision layers to your tiles, and that's what makes TileMapLayers so important, because if you notice, we have different layers here and they all have their own functions. In this case, our tall trees has a collision layer function, but you can also have different collision layers if you like. So you can add blocks to the ground layer, or just add a new block layer or something. Our tile set has these little items here. You can probably put houses, you could put fences, all those things, and add collision layers to those, so that the player wouldn't be able to pass beyond those items. But that's basically how collision layers work in TileMapLayers. And now we are beginning to see the power of using TileMapLayers. We have navigation layers. Navigation layers are really nice for when you have like enemy AI. You wanted to go along a certain navigation path. Let's stop here for now. I hope this helps you when you're building your layers in your games. This doesn't just apply to top-down scenes. You can have side scrollers, and you can use the tiles with certain platforms and those sort of things where your player can jump on. You add your collision layers to those as well, and it'll work same way, except you add gravity to those games instead. Hoping to see you in the next one.